So this is our second to last session, I believe, right, Chantal? Okay, yeah. So that being said, I'm gonna do my best to make the next two lessons packed with fun stuff. So today we're gonna continue to go into anatomy. And anatomy is a really jam-packed thing that is hard to kind of cram into one lesson. So, I was thinking a lot about it and how to present it to you guys. And I kind of just want to start off by saying that there really is no set like proportions or anything like that for the human body. As I've said, every class, everybody's body is very different, especially when it comes to proportions. And a lot of these things have also been set by beauty standards. Like, for example, when drawing was in its prolific stages in the Renaissance, and even before, like in classic mythology or Greek mythology in those ages, there were very particular standards of what a human body should look like. It should be muscular, it should be voluptuous, this and that, whatnot. But as we all know, the reality is different. Everybody has completely different bodies. So I don't think it's really necessary to kind of sit here and say that, this should be like this and this should be like that, because it's really up to what you're seeing at face value, not what someone's standards or measurements are. So just kind of want to give that preset before we really delve into anything. Another thing about anatomy and drawing the figure is that it takes so much practice, and it's really something that should be done from life. When you're first learning how to draw a figure, I in my early stages of drawing, I really got drilled in this phase particularly, and just literally drew people in front of me like every single day. So really practice is key. So hopefully after today's lesson, you can take the exercises I'm going to show you and implement them as much as you can. So what we're going to do today is a series of gesture drawings. Has anyone done a gesture drawing before? No. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. So a gesture drawing is basically an activity that's timed. So we're going to be doing this in intervals. And the idea is that you're trying to capture the essence of something. So it's not so much about getting a perfectly drawn figure as much as it is getting the essence, the gesture of what the figure looks like. So like the movement behind it. It is an exercise in practicing proportions and all that other stuff, but the reason that it's split into different intervals is so that you could focus on different parts of the drawing. And having a timer is also a really good way to kind of, stop yourself at a certain point and not get really fixated on small little details. So that being said, what you need to do before we get started is just have a pencil, an eraser. You don't need a ruler today. You do need a piece of paper. Honestly, the bigger the better, but really whatever you have available. The reason I say the bigger the better is because especially like when we're drawing figures and in drawing in general, it's much better to use your whole arm. I know that sounds dramatic, but have more mobility in your arm than just your hand. It feels strange at first, but it's really helpful when you're drawing. So if you have access to a bigger sheet of paper, that would be useful. If not, don't worry. And then the last thing you need to do is take a photo of yourself, or if you have a mirror available, you can do that. You can use a mirror, but the reason I'm asking you to take a photo of yourself is because I would like you guys to practice using like a full body shot, and I'm going to show you shortly and give you a few minutes to do this, so no worries, just so you have it in your head right now. You know, I would have really loved to do this with a live model, but everyone in my home is busy and I need to teach you guys, so I can't do it. I came up with a funny little system that I think will work for what we're doing today. Yeah, so before I let you guys go and take your photos, I'm just going to walk you through my stages of different drawings and kind of explain to you more about the activity that we're going to do today. All right, so here's a silly photo of me that I took today that's going to be the reference for what we're doing. And the reason I'm in this weird pose is because you know, usually when you have models, figure models who are posing for drawing classes and whatnot, we have them pose in these like strange ways, really just to get like interesting angles and to practice capturing different movements. So if you're in a figure drawing class, you might see models doing like really crazy things, posing in like, you know, really difficult looking ways for a long time. It's usually really fluid. Like there's usually, you know, one pose for a minute and then another pose for 2 minutes and so forth. It's a really the best way to learn how to draw people. But we will make our adjustments for Zoom class. So when you're taking your photos, you know, try to capture your whole body. It doesn't have to be a pose like this. You could be standing, you could be sitting. You know, if you can't use your whole body, then that's okay. You know, you can do like a bust type of situation and whatnot. But if you can, that would be more ideal. And if you can't take a photo of yourself for some reason, let me know. And, you know, you can use this photo if you want also, like if you really don't want to do, you know, take a photo of yourself or use yourself as a reference or someone else as a reference, you can use the photo that you have here or that I have here, okay? So we're gonna move on. And so what we're gonna be doing today is doing intervals of 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and around 15 to 20 minutes, okay? So that's what I did for these 4 drawings, and I'm gonna show you the different stages and kind of talk to you about how I got to my final state, okay? So also before I keep going, each of these drawings is different. It's not like developed from the same one. I started over each time. So each interval of gesture drawing, you're going to start a new drawing. So maybe before we get started, if you don't have a sketchbook on you, have at least 4 pieces of paper with you, okay? All right, so for this first drawing, this one is done in a minute. And so basically this really captures what a gesture drawing is. The idea is that we're not getting hyper-focused on any certain part of the body, but more so just imagining that like there is no form, there's no muscles, anything like that. We're looking at the body in a really abstract way, and we're just looking at lines and shapes. And so, you know, the first thing I started with is the head and just kind of getting that general direction. You know, in this photo, I'm in profile and my head is like slightly tilted up. So, you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just that general direction and shape. And then then you kind of start with the rest of the body and just imagining it as lines. If you imagine it as lines and like smaller shapes, like focusing especially on joints, in that sense, it's really a lot easier to draw this, or to begin the figure drawing. And I know I said that there aren't really any separate portions of the body, but just a couple things that I want to say. In general, the human body is about 7 heads tall. It's not always that way, but in general. So, one big thing that I usually do, and like a lot of people do, is we have a tendency to make our heads a lot bigger than the rest of our bodies. So just keep that in mind, especially like in relation to our hands and our feet. Just kind of be conscious of that as you're going, that we have that tendency to do that. So you can always go back and, fix your head size or whatnot. But like I said, also everyone's head is different. Some people have smaller heads, some people have larger heads. So it really depends. And it also depends like your age range, like what we were talking about last week. Smaller, younger people have larger heads in comparison to their bodies. So also depends. So yeah, this is kind of the first one, like 60 seconds, really quick. All we're trying to do is get the general feeling of what the body shape looks like, okay? This is a blurry picture and it's about 3 minutes. So in this stage, I'm looking more at the form, and just trying to get more of like the actual body, the body parts, the muscle. Another thing is that usually when we're like starting to learn about anatomy, we're learning how to draw a skeleton, and we're learning how to draw a body in the nude, which we're not going to do today, but it is a really valuable thing, just to learn like what muscles, go in what parts of the body and how those form our bodies. So, I have that memory and like that knowledge, but I think that you can still see it in a lot of like, past your clothes and whatnot. But, for what we're doing today, if you have like a sweater on or whatever, you can just try to get like the folds and that and whatnot. You don't have to be wearing like anything skin tight or anything. But just so you know, it is useful to know those parts, but not necessary. So, in here, this is only 3 minutes. So, it's still very abstract looking, but I was able to sneak in some more of the details in the drawing. And also another thing is like, while you're doing these drawings, there's no need to like really go very hard with the pencil, just because like a lot of these lines you're not going to need later. So, just having like a lighter touch with the pencil is also helpful. Okay. So this is about 5 minutes. So as you can see, it's a little crazy. The way my mind is working is that, I have like my main lines that are establishing the direction of the limbs. Right here, I'm beginning to divide the face into the proportions that we talked about last week. But I'm still not getting into anything super detailed. In this stage, I kind of looked back and I'm like, and thinking, are my proportions accurate? Are the directions that the limbs are going accurate? And that kind of stuff. Just really trying to get accuracy in the like really foundational things. Still not ready for anything super detailed. Okay. And so this one was about 15 minutes. And so in this stage, I try to erase most of that kind of, you know, like scratch marks basically is what they look like. I like personally as an artist, I have a tendency to do that. So I try to erase them because it gets really messy at a certain point. Um, but the really like kind of nice thing about gesture drawings is this sort of crisp line that you do at the end. And you know, it's okay to leave like this kind of stuff in a gesture drawing because it's useful. Like it shows you the process and it also shows you like where you're identifying like the different joints and different parts of the body. But kind of going over at the end with like a bold, confident line is usually what these next stages are, and then going in and working in on the face, and you know all these other parts. But yeah, so you know, I'm looking at it now and I'm already starting to like pick out things that are not super accurate, but that's okay because it's a 15-minute drawing. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. The idea is that we're doing this exercise over and over, using the same image so that you can, you know, really hone in on how to develop the body. That being said, um, hands and feet are very tricky to draw. So don't be, you know, discouraged by that part because it is really difficult. I'm trying to think of like any pointers to give you. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit of how I developed it. When I'm drawing a hand, you know, I start off really by just, you know, the shape. So like before I even drew the fingers, just like, you know, imagining that this is like a rectangle and then it comes, you know, there's the knuckles right here. So that's a line coming this way. And then your wrist is another line coming down. So it kind of forms like a triangular shape. And then, you know, our fingers have so many joints in them. So really just identifying those, like, you know, particularly the knuckles, and then there's one more joint up here where these other, where like the very tips of our fingers are. But, you know, you don't have to get super into that. Another like extra credit thing for you guys to do is to try to draw your hand. It's probably the hardest thing ever, but you will learn so much. But for what we're doing today, you know, you don't have to focus too much on that, you know, or feet either necessarily. But, you know, like in this photo, I'm wearing socks, so you can't really see like the very, you know, complex anatomy of the foot. You can kind of see it, you know, you can see the heel, you can see the ball of our foot and like the toes a little bit. But I really just want you guys to focus on just getting this general gesture, if that makes sense. Yeah, so we're gonna get started soon, but before that, I just want to check in and see if you guys have any questions. No? Okay. Just let me know if anything seems unclear or if you have, you know, are concerned about anything. Okay, so it's 4:27. How about I give everybody until about 4:33 to take a photo or to, you know, it could be of yourself, it could be of somebody else in your home, whatever. You can use mine if you want as well. So I'm gonna give everybody about 5 minutes to take a photo and then we'll come back at 4:33, okay? Do people need more time?
Hi, I just joined, so I don't really know what's happening, but I can catch up.
Okay. So we are doing figure drawing today. We're doing an activity called gesture drawings. And so to start off, you're gonna need a photo of yourself or of somebody else in your home. And this is just an example of one I took. It doesn't have to be this elaborate. Just a photo that you can use as a reference. If you can't take a photo, you can use this one I have right here. But I'm just giving everybody a couple minutes to get a photo for the activity, okay?
Okay.
So I'll give people a few more minutes then. Okay, are folks feeling like they have a good photo to work from? Yes? Okay.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna get started then. So just have your piece of paper, your pencil, and eraser ready. So just, I'm gonna go over this first thing again a little bit. So for this first drawing, it's gonna be a minute, okay? It's short. So that being said, really just try to do like a line drawing like this. Extra challenge is to not pick up your pencil, but you don't have to do that. Just if you want to challenge yourself. So, you know, the way I did this is I started by just drawing the head shape, kind of trying to get that direction, that profile, you know, establishing the main parts. So the neck, the spine, you know, right here is the hip, the, you know, our leg joint, the femur, you know, this right here, this line that goes down, right here, the ball of the foot, and then the end of the foot, the other leg, the knee joint right here, our shin, this foot, the shoulders right here, the elbow, this blob that looks like a hand. So really, this is all just very abstract, okay? So the first exercise is really just about trying to capture that gesture, okay? So I'm gonna put a timer on and I'll let you guys know when I start it and when I stop it, okay? So is everybody ready? Okay.
Alyssa, will you be showing your drawing or your photo for anyone who's might be using
Oh
it?
yeah, sorry, thanks Chantal. So if anybody needs this as a reference, here it is, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. All right, that's a minute. Okay. How was that? That's good. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Also feel free to send your drawing over if you want any feedback or anything like that. Okay, if everybody is good to go, we're gonna go on to the second one. So this, this drawing is gonna be 3 minutes. Okay, so using the same image as the first time. So, you know, begin the same way in which you're just using lines and identifying joints. But at this point, you can start also implementing other forms like, you know, the muscular shapes, you know, the fabric that you're wearing. You can start putting in like, you know, gestures of your hair, all while keeping the pencil pretty light. You know how a few weeks ago, I don't know if you all were here for it, but we did like a cross contour when we drew a fruit. If that's helpful to you, you can also try to implement that for this, but it's not necessary. Yeah, so again, extra challenge, don't pick up your pencil. That's also a good way to kind of train your hand in this exercise. But yeah, Okay, so this one's a little bit longer, 3 minutes. So you don't have, not as much pressure. Okay, so I'm gonna get started in 3,
Can you
2,
switch to the photo?
yes. In 3, 2, 1. Sure you guys heard that. All right, so that was 3 minutes. Okay, any questions? No? Okay. All right, so this one's good. I think 5 minutes is a solid time. So 5 minutes will definitely allow you to kind of get to a more developed stage. So at 5 minutes, you know, it feels a lot longer than what we have been doing. So it gives you the opportunity to kind of like look back at it and just kind of sorry, look back at it. You can, you know, look at your proportions and just kind of, you know, edit anything if it needs to be edited. In my stage, I didn't get to really any fine details at this point yet. But you know, the more you practice, you'd be surprised at how quickly you can get to that stage. I'm also just like I have to admit I'm a really slow drawer, so this activity is challenging for me. But yeah, so you know, like I said, you don't have to erase these lines on the inside. I think they're helpful actually in just kind of seeing your process and how you got to this point. but just kind of keep those lines on the lighter side. And then when you feel more confident with your form, then you can go and sort of make a nice contour on the edges. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to here and start the timer for 5 minutes. All right, so in 3, 2, 1. Just FYI, you have 1 minute left. All right. How did that one feel? Did it feel a little longer? You got a little bit more time. Okay. Cool. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right. So for this next one, so this is the, I'm going to give you guys, what time is it? I'm going to give you guys about 15 minutes just for time's sake to do this next one. So at this point, if it's useful to you, you can start erasing some of those lines. Actually, let me go backwards a bit. So you want to start off the same way you've been starting each drawing, first with the lines and the, you know, more abstract shapes, circles for joints and whatnot. And then you can start becoming more detailed, adding more of the like recognizable forms. And then, so as you have more time, you know, at this point you can start putting in like the more definitive things like the folds of the fabric and, you know, the creases and, you know, the kind of more detailed parts. So, you know, if it's useful to you, you can start erasing some of the other lines that you had before. But you know, it's totally up to you. For me, I like to because I make so much chicken scratch that it gets confusing. But you know, if you don't, then that's totally fine. Yeah, so you know, and then also you could put your knowledge from last week into full effect with the portrait. Yeah, okay. So 15 minutes, it's gonna be a little bit longer, and then we might do one more depending on how much time we have left after that. But, okay, so 15, and I'm gonna get started right about now. Okay.
I can't believe it's been 14 weeks. Like I started a meeting and I was like, yeah, week 13. And I was like, shouldn't be graduation next week. I have to buy like everything from a gift card. I had to make certificates and mail them out. I do all the shit. I'm probably just gonna, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get them food and deliver it that day to them, like myself, and then I'm gonna deliver their like graduation to them. 7. Yeah, no, most of them live in the Mission. One of them lives in here, and then one lives in the Bayview. So we shouldn't do that part. Maybe I can have someone help me do it. It's just making those certificates too. I have to go to the office and do that. I have to go to the office and probably do all of that. I'm getting the antibody test. Where? I'm gonna see my doctor on Friday. Talk to us about all this fucking heart, whatever it is, chest pressure. I do draw my blood work.
You guys have about 1 minute left. Okay, all right, guys, so that was about 15 minutes. How was that one for you? Good. Did you feel like doing the prior 3 was helpful to getting to that stage? Yeah, good. Yeah, so really like practice makes perfect, and just continuing to do these exercises, especially timed, is like really, really helpful. Even with like other kinds of drawings too, not just figure drawings. But if you ever like, you know, want to do a little exercise to kind of get yourself going, that's really helpful. Okay, so I know we are approaching the end of class, but while you were doing that activity, I had one more idea which could be fun and would really put all of these practice runs to the test. So, you know, if you can stay just a couple extra minutes, I would love to have you. If you can't, that's totally fine. But so for this last one, I want you guys to try what's called a blind contour, which is basically doing the same exact thing, except you're not looking at your paper at all. You're still using the hand that you draw with. You know, there's different kinds of blind contours. There's the types that you do with your opposite hand. But, you know, just, you know, for this one, you can use the same one. So I want you guys to try to draw the same image without looking at your paper at all. So basically you're just looking at the photograph, or, you know, if you're looking at your actual form in front of you, you can do that. So we'll do this one for 5 minutes. Let's see what we come up with, okay? All right. So get started. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, you guys have about 20 seconds. Okay. Now, how does that look? I feel like you're gonna be surprised at how it looks. I think that it usually comes out better than you think. But awesome. So those are the 5 exercises I had for you guys today. Please let me know if you guys had any questions. You know, it's hard to cram in such a complex topic into a couple of weeks, especially since we're only meeting like an hour and a half. So if you want more resources or, you know, like more in-depth explanations about anatomy and that and whatnot, just reach out, feel free to let me know. Yeah, that's all we have for today. And so next week we will be completing this series of drawing classes. Next week, just to kind of bring it full circle, I'm going to do a little lesson about color, color theory and mixing colors and whatnot. If you don't have supplies for that, that's totally fine. It's mostly going to be me kind of lecturing and telling you guys about it. And I'm going to try to come up with a fun activity for us to do that will put our knowledge to the test. Yeah, so that being said, that's all for today. And yeah, like I said, please feel free to reach out if you want any of these photos also that I took, or like the different stages, or any resources or any artists to look at who, you know, exemplify this stuff. Yeah, please let me know. Okay. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. And we'll see each other next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.